My name is Arya, and the night I found out the truth, I realized love was not what bound us anymore. Betrayal was. It began with something so small, so ordinary, that it should have slipped past me unnoticed. A single vibration on his phone. It was late, well past midnight. He was in the shower, humming to himself, water crashing down like nothing in the world could touch him. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity is not always weakness. Sometimes it is survival. I reached for his phone. My fingers hesitated in the dark, trembling just enough for me to feel guilty before I even unlocked the screen. But guilt dissolved into ice the moment my eyes landed on the email. A boarding pass. One ticket. One destination. Not for me. Not for us. For him and another woman. Her name stared at me in bold black letters. Lillian. A coworker. A name he had spoken dozens of times with a shrug, calling her just a colleague who needed guidance. My breath caught in my throat as the reality hit me like a collision. The destination was a romantic city. The date was 2 weeks from now. The seat assignments were side by side. His by the window, hers next to him. The screen glowed in my hands and it felt like the light itself was burning me, exposing me, breaking me. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. I wanted to scream. Instead, I placed it back down carefully, as if betrayal were fragile and could shatter further. When he came out of the shower, he looked at me with that careless grin that had once melted me. "Still awake?" he asked. His hair dripped down his neck, his body relaxed. He had no idea that the world between us had already ended. I smiled back. Practiced smile. A silent mask. And I said nothing. Because that was the moment I understood. If I exploded now, I would lose everything. If I waited, if I planned, if I sharpened myself into something colder and stronger than pain, then I would win. That night I did not sleep. I lay next to him, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breaths. My chest ached with every inhale, but my mind refused to shut down. Memories replayed in fragments. The nights he claimed to be working late, the dinners he canceled at the last minute, the times he accused me of being too suspicious. Each one was a breadcrumb leading straight to this. I turned to face him as he slept. Peaceful. Innocent looking. As if betrayal had never touched him. But I knew better. I had the proof glowing in my mind. I slipped out of bed, sat at my desk and pulled open my laptop. My hands moved fast, mechanical, typing the flight number, memorizing the departure time, the gate. I traced every detail like a soldier memorizing the battlefield. He thought he was clever. He thought he was safe. He thought he could build a world outside of me and I would never know. But what he didn't know was that I had just stepped into his secret world. I whispered into the silence of the room, a vow to myself. You wanted to surprise her. But I will surprise you. And when I do, it will not be with love. It will be with truth. By dawn, my plan had already begun to form. I was not going to sit at home while he flew away with her. No, I was going to be there first. At the airport. Waiting. Watching. Ready to make sure his lies never even took off the ground. And as the sun rose, one thought repeated in my mind until it became unshakable. You underestimated me. Now you will regret it. The morning after I found the boarding pass, I woke with a weight on my chest that no amount of air could lift. The apartment looked the same, yet everything felt altered, as though betrayal had repainted the walls in invisible strokes. He moved about the kitchen in his usual rhythm, pouring coffee, buttering toast, scrolling his phone, but now every gesture seemed staged, every smile rehearsed. He set a mug in front of me, kissed my hair and said, "You look tired." Tired. That was the word he chose, as though exhaustion was all I carried. He had no idea I was staring at the ruins of our life together, while he hummed over scrambled eggs. I smiled back because I knew now. Masks were survival. Over the next days I became an observer in my own home. His movements, once mundane, now glowed with hidden meaning. The tilted phone screen at dinner. The text alerts silence with one swipe. The sudden cologne that lingered long after he left. He thought I was distracted, that I had grown complacent. But I was writing everything down. A notebook hid in my nightstand, filled with timestamps and observations. Each page was another brick in the foundation of the truth. Still, notes were not enough. I needed proof. Real proof. One Thursday evening he told me he was working late. I waited 15 minutes, then slipped into my car and followed his taillights through the city. My pulse raced so fast it felt like my ribs might split. He turned into a neighborhood I barely knew, parked near a dimly lit cafe and stepped out. And then she appeared. Lillian. The sight of them together burned hotter than fire. She brushed his arm casually, like it belonged to her. He leaned close, whispering something that made her laugh too loud for the night. I snapped photos with trembling hands. His arm around her waist. Her lips grazing his cheek. Proof etched into pixels. I could have left then, but instinct kept me rooted. I wanted to see more, to understand the full extent of his betrayal. They walked into the cafe and chose a booth near the back. I slipped inside moments later, hoodie pulled low, heart beating like thunder. From the corner I watched him touch her hand across the table, the same way he used to touch mine when we were new. When the waitress delivered wine, I nearly laughed. Wine had been our ritual, 1 glass before dinner, 1 glass after. Now it was theirs. My chest ached, but I did not cry. I recorded the moment in my mind, searing it into memory. Hours later, back in bed beside him, I stared at the outline of his back in the dark. He breathed evenly, as though the world were still intact. My phone lay beneath my pillow, heavy with evidence. I could hear it hum in my imagination, like a weapon waiting to be drawn. But I was not finished. The next day I called my friend Maya, the one person I trusted more than anyone. "I need you to do something," I whispered. I gave her his license plate number, asked her to track his movements when I could not. She didn't ask questions. Real friends never do. By Friday I had a gallery full of photos and a notebook thick with detail. But the most powerful evidence was not the images or the timestamps. It was the clarity in my own mind. The veil had lifted. I no longer lived with the man I loved. I lived with a stranger wrapped in lies. That night, while he slept, I opened my laptop again and studied the flight details. I traced every letter, every number. Gate, time, terminal. I imagined the airport terminal buzzing with voices, the smell of coffee, the echo of announcements. I pictured myself there, hidden in the crowd, waiting to see him walk hand in hand with her. I whispered into the silence, my voice steady this time. "You gave her my time. You gave her my love. But now I hold your lies in my hands. And when I decide to use them, you will not see it coming." The hardest part of betrayal is not the lies themselves. It is the silence you must carry while pretending not to see them. Each morning I woke beside him with my evidence hidden under layers of calm. He stretched, kissed my cheek, and whispered plans for the day as if we were still whole. But in my nightstand lay a notebook thick with betrayal. And in my phone lived photographs that could destroy him in seconds. It became my ritual. Observing, recording, saving. While he thought he was leading 2 lives, I was the one orchestrating both. Maya was my lifeline. She called one evening with a hushed voice. He was at a hotel on 7th Street. Room 10. Not alone. The words cut through me, sharp and merciless. Yet I did not cry. Instead, I drove by that hotel the next day. It was nondescript, beige walls, curtains pulled too tightly. But knowing he had been inside with her transformed the building into a monument of deceit. I snapped a picture of the sign, tucked it into my folder labeled evidence. He had no idea that the woman he thought was blind was cataloging every misstep. I learned to play my role well. When he arrived home late, smelling faintly of perfume, I asked nothing. When he claimed to be exhausted, I massaged his shoulders and pretended to believe. Each lie he told I matched with silence. My silence was a cage, one he willingly stepped into, never realizing I was the one locking the door. But silence is never empty. It echoed with fury. One afternoon I went through our joint bank statements. Hidden among groceries and bills were small suspicious charges, boutiques I never shopped in, restaurants we never visited together, gifts I never received. The pattern was undeniable. He wasn't just stealing my trust. He was funding his affair with our shared money. I printed the statements, highlighted every transaction, and added them to my growing file. The folder was no longer just proof. It was a weapon waiting for the right moment to strike. The more evidence I gathered, the calmer I became. It was a strange transformation. The deeper I stepped into betrayal, the less it consumed me. Power shifted slowly from his lies to my control. He thought he was clever, that his late-night whispers and careful erasures left no trace. But every trace was already in my hands. Maya pushed me further. Don't just catch him in the act. Make him confess without knowing he's confessing. Her words lingered in my head. I began planting small traps. I asked about a shirt I had never seen before, watching him stumble through excuses. I mentioned a perfume I smelled at the office, seeing his jaw tighten. Each reaction was another confirmation. Each twitch, each hesitation was as loud as a scream. And then came the night that sealed everything. He left his laptop open on the coffee table mid-email. My hands trembled as I sat down. He had always been careful, but this time he slipped. A thread of messages to Lillian scrolled across the screen. Plans for dinners, for weekends, for the future. But the part that froze me was his promise. Soon. She won't know until it's over. That was me. I was the obstacle, the shadow he wanted to erase. I copied every email. Line by line, date by date, promise by promise. My folder swelled with his betrayal until it felt heavier than stone. That night, lying beside him, I whispered to myself, "You think I am powerless, but you are already standing on the stage I built. When the curtain rises, it will not be your performance the world sees. It will be your downfall." And I smiled in the dark because for the first time, I was no longer afraid of losing him. He was already lost. Now the only question was how loudly I would let him fall. Trust is like glass. Once cracked, you can pretend it is still whole, but every reflection shows the fracture. I had been living with fractures for weeks, pretending to laugh at his jokes, pretending to believe the late nights at the office. But silence can only hold so long. I needed an ally, someone who would not flinch at the ugly truth I had unearthed. That ally was Maya, my closest friend since college. She had seen me through exams, heartbreaks, and the slow climb of building a life. If there was anyone I could trust with this poison, it was her. We met at a cafe far across town, the kind with chipped tables and peeling wallpaper. Neutral ground. Safe ground. He would never set foot there. Rain hammered on the windows like a drumbeat as I placed the heavy folder between us. "Show me," Maya said, her voice low but steady. I slid it across. Inside were weeks of evidence, bank statements, receipts, photographs, screenshots. Proof that his loyalty had been nothing more than performance. Maya's eyes moved over the pages. Her jaw tightened. Finally she looked up. "Arya, this isn't just infidelity. This is financial betrayal. He is spending your money, your sacrifices on her. This is theft dressed up as romance." The word theft hit me like a blade. I had called it betrayal. I had called it cheating. But theft? Yes. He had stolen my years, my trust, my hard-earned money, and converted them into roses and hotel rooms for another woman. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked. My mouth was dry. For days I had whispered possibilities into the dark, none of them solid. But now, across from her steady gaze, clarity rose like fire. I want him exposed. Not in private. Not in whispers. I want the mask ripped off in front of the people he craves respect from. He uses reputation as his weapon. I'll make it his noose. Maya leaned forward, notebook already open, pen ready. "Then let's plan." Her certainty steadied me. She listed steps like a general preparing for war. "First, we secure the evidence. Multiple copies. One for you, one with me, one digital, one hidden. If he suspects, he might try to destroy everything." I nodded. I had already made a USB copy, hidden inside a book on my desk. Tomorrow I would make 2 more. Second, we map the timing. He thrives at social gatherings, right? Business dinners, networking events, family occasions. He wants to be admired. That's where the truth will cut deepest. I closed my eyes, picturing him at the last dinner party, charming colleagues, raising a glass, basking in the applause. Yes, to strip him bare there would be to rob him of his armor. That night, Maya connected me to a lawyer she trusted. His office smelled of old paper and authority. He adjusted his glasses as I laid out the evidence. "This is strong," he said, tapping the statements. "You could file for financial misconduct. If you want to end this quietly, you can. If you want it public, we can make it very public." "I want it undeniable," I replied. My voice didn't shake. By the time I returned home, the plan had bones. Maya had the second folder. The lawyer had begun drafting preliminary motions. I had chosen the battlefield. A company banquet 3 weeks away, where his colleagues, superiors, and friends would all gather. When I walked through the door that night, he was sprawled on the couch, half asleep with the television casting shadows across his face. For a moment I studied him the way a hunter studies prey, not with affection but with cold patience. He stirred and smiled at me, oblivious. "You're home early," he mumbled. "Yes," I said softly. My heart was steady, my mask flawless. Inside, I whispered to myself, "Every word I say to you from now on is part of the script. Every smile is rehearsal. When the curtain rises, you won't be the hero. You'll be the warning." The weeks leading to the banquet stretched like wire pulled too tight. Every day I carried the weight of 2 lives. The one he thought I still lived and the one I was building in secret. My mornings looked ordinary: coffee, work, emails, a smile when he kissed my cheek. But my nights were a battlefield of strategy. Maya and I turned into conspirators. She had a whiteboard pinned in her apartment where timelines sprawled across in red marker. Collect evidence, protect backups, coordinate with lawyer, prepare speech. It looked almost ridiculous, like we were plotting a heist. And in a way we were stealing back my dignity, my narrative, my freedom. One evening as I sat with her I said, "What if he suspects? What if he finds the copies?" She leaned back, smirking. "Then he burns paper. He cannot burn the truth. We have it in too many places." Her calm unnerved me but also fueled me. I needed that steel when my own knees trembled. Meanwhile, the lawyer guided me with precision. He explained how public exposure could strengthen my legal case. If you show financial betrayal in front of credible witnesses, it adds weight. Not just gossip, not just suspicion, but evidence tied to his reputation. His words became bricks under my feet, lifting me higher. I was not a scorned lover plotting vengeance. I was a woman building her own defense brick by brick. Still, the nights clawed at me. I would lie in bed next to him, his arm sometimes draped across me like a chain, and wonder if he sensed it, the storm brewing in silence. He still muttered about long hours and meetings running late, and every lie scraped against my ribs. One night when he turned his back to me, phone clutched under the pillow, I almost laughed. He thought secrecy was in the shadows. He had no idea I had dragged his shadows into light already. 3 days before the banquet, Maya handed me a sealed envelope. "Your emergency card," she said. I frowned. "What's inside?" "Your speech. Written and printed. If you freeze, if your mind blanks, if your emotions overwhelm you, you pull this out. Read it word for word. You will not lose." The paper felt heavy in my palm. I tucked it into my purse as if it were a weapon. But even as I rehearsed my role, doubt whispered. What if people did not believe me? What if they pitted him instead, spun me into the emotional woman he always mocked me for being? The night before the event, I stood before the mirror. My reflection stared back, eyes sharper than I remembered, lips set in determination. I whispered aloud. He called me too much. Too dramatic. Too emotional. Tomorrow I will show them that emotions can cut sharper than lies. Sleep did not come. I sat by the window watching headlights flicker across the street. The plan was set, every piece aligned. Yet my heart thudded like a war drum, reminding me what was at stake. Not only my pride, not only my finances, but my very identity. The morning arrived cold and bright. I dressed with deliberate care. Navy suit, pearl earrings, hair pinned back. No frills. No extravagance. Authority, not fragility. As I stepped into the cab, Maya squeezed my hand. "Remember," she whispered. "He thinks tonight belongs to him. That is what makes the fall so satisfying." The cab pulled away, city streets blurring, my reflection flickering in the window. My pulse kept pace with the passing lights. Tonight I would not just attend a banquet. Tonight I would end an illusion. And as the venue's golden lights rose in the distance, one thought carried me forward. He built his empire on lies. Tonight, I will burn the foundation. The banquet hall shimmered with chandeliers, each crystal scattering light like 1,000 watchful eyes. Round tables dressed in white linen spread across the room, polished silver catching the glow. Laughter floated in the air, the kind of laughter that comes from people who believe they are untouchable. He was among them, the star of his own stage. I walked in with Maya at my side. She wore calm like armor, scanning the crowd as if calculating exits and allies. My steps were slow, deliberate. Every second mattered. Every detail was part of the story I wanted them all to see. He spotted me from across the room, surprise flickering for a moment before he masked it with a smile. He strode over, suit immaculate, cologne sharp. "You look beautiful," he murmured, kissing my cheek as though nothing had ever fractured between us. My stomach churned, but my face did not flinch. "You too," I whispered. The script continued. The program unfolded with speeches, glasses raised, applause echoing off the marble walls. He was seated at the head table, beaming as colleagues praised his dedication and late nights. Each compliment landed like poison in my veins, but I sat still, clutching my purse where the envelope waited. Then came the moment. His supervisor stood, microphone in hand, and called him to the podium. "Tonight we celebrate a man whose commitment has inspired us all," she said, and the crowd erupted with cheers. He walked up, shoulders squared, soaking in the admiration. He spoke of loyalty, of sacrifice, of long hours spent to build a future not only for the company, but for his family. His words flowed like honey, masking the rot beneath. My hand slid into my purse, brushing the paper. My breath slowed. This was the stage. This was the moment. But then something I had not planned. From the back of the room a woman entered. Not just any woman, the one from the photographs, the receipts, the late-night whispers. She was dressed in red, bold and unapologetic, as if daring the room to notice her. And they did. Heads turned. Murmurs spread. My heart slammed against my ribs. She was not supposed to be here. The plan had been precise, every step calculated, and this was chaos. She walked toward the head table, her heels clicking like a drumbeat. He faltered for a second at the podium, eyes widening before he recovered. "Ah, my dear friend," he said too quickly, motioning her to sit. Gasps rose from the crowd. "Friend." The word hung in the air, sour and unbelievable. Maya leaned toward me, her whisper sharp. "This changes nothing. In fact, it may give you more power." But I hesitated. My mind raced. If I spoke now, would they think I orchestrated her entrance? Would it dilute the impact of my evidence? Or would it sharpen it? Her presence a living testament to his lies? The room buzzed with unease. He stumbled through his speech, sweat glistening at his temples. The mask was already cracking. My fingers clutched the envelope. The cliff was before me. I could leap now, seize the moment, or I could wait for the perfect second when silence would sharpen every word I had to say. As applause trickled out, he stepped down, moving to greet guests with forced cheer. She hovered nearby, smiling with brittle confidence, clearly believing she had a place here. Maya's hand pressed against mine. "Your choice," she murmured. "But remember, hesitation feeds him. Action strips him." I rose, my chair scraping against marble. The noise cut through the chatter like a blade. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. And with that, the next act began. The room stilled when I stood. Forks froze midway to mouths. Glasses trembled in halted hands. I felt their eyes like heat on my skin, curiosity sparking into unease. He turned toward me, his smile too quick, too rehearsed, his voice falsely warm. "Darling," he said, stepping forward. "Did you want to say a few words?" That word, darling, dripped from his lips like poison disguised as honey. For years it had silenced me, dismissed me, made me his accessory. Tonight it became my fuel. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady, sharper than I imagined it could be. "I do." I stepped toward the podium. The envelope crinkled in my purse, but I did not reach for it. The words were already burning inside me, etched into my chest. The crowd parted slightly, whispers building like an oncoming storm. He tried to guide me with a hand at my back. I brushed it away. The rejection was subtle, but gasps rippled through the tables. I reached the microphone. My reflection glimmered in the silver base, and for a moment I saw myself as they must. A woman rising from silence into fire. "Tonight," I began, voice low but commanding, "we are here to celebrate honesty, loyalty, sacrifice. Words that mean nothing when they come from a man who has lied to every one of you, and to me." The air shattered with murmurs. He laughed weakly, raising his hands as if to wave it off. "She's joking," he said, his voice cracking. "She's always had a flair for drama." I locked eyes with him. Do I look like I am joking? Silence. Thick. Heavy. Waiting. I pulled out my phone, opening the folder I had built brick by brick. Photographs of him entering hotels, receipts for dinners, bank statements showing withdrawals with my car and my account. The screen glowed. Evidence undeniable. Gasps turned into sharp intakes of breath. One woman covered her mouth. A man muttered, "Oh my God," and then her. The woman in red. She stepped forward, anger sparking in her eyes, as though she were the victim. "This is private," she snapped. "You have no right." I turned the phone toward her. "No right? You sat in the car I paid for, at dinners I funded, while he called me too emotional to notice. This is not private. This is theft. This is betrayal. And tonight it ends." The audience erupted. Half in disbelief, half in awe. He lunged toward me, hissing under his breath. "You'll ruin me." I leaned into the microphone. "No. You ruined yourself. I am simply showing them the truth." The room buzzed with shock, people leaning toward one another, whispering, eyes darting between him and me. Every lie he had built began crumbling under the weight of silence, broken only by the evidence I displayed. He reached for the microphone, but Maya moved fast, standing near me, a wall of presence. "Let her speak," she said firmly. And somehow, the authority in her voice silenced him more effectively than any force could. I inhaled, steady, then delivered the final blow for that moment. He said he was building a future for his family. He forgot to mention he meant 2 families. The hall exploded, gasps, shouts, disbelief layered into chaos. He staggered back, his perfect suit suddenly a cage he could not escape. And me? I stood straighter, finally unshaken. The spotlight no longer belonged to him. It was mine. But as the noise swelled, I knew this was only the beginning. The real fallout was about to ignite. The moment after my words landed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with the earth trembling beneath me. A second of silence, stretched thin, taut, almost unbearable, before the crowd erupted. Gasps collided with whispers. Chairs scraped against marble as people leaned forward, craning their necks for a better view. The woman in red froze, her smile collapsing into a grimace, her arms crossing as though she could shield herself from the judgment that now rained down on her. He stumbled back from the podium, face pale, sweat beading at his forehead. His hand trembled as he reached for the microphone. "This is outrageous." But his words were drowned by voices in the crowd. "Did you hear what she said? She has proof. All those late nights, my God, it was true." Each murmur was a dagger cutting into the image he had so carefully curated. His mask was cracking not in silence but in front of an audience that once idolized him. I stood still, phone in hand, waiting. My stillness was power. The evidence glowed on the screen, undeniable, unforgiving. I did not have to scream. The truth screamed for me. "Arya," he hissed, his voice breaking. "Put that away before you embarrass yourself." I tilted my head, my voice sharp and clear. "The only person embarrassed here is you." Maya's hand touched my shoulder lightly, a silent signal of support. She whispered, "Do not let him control the rhythm. Own the silence and they will listen harder." So I did. I let the room fall quiet again, waiting until their restless murmurs settled into a hush of anticipation. Then, calm and deliberate, I pulled a second set of documents from the envelope. "These," I said, holding them up, "are bank transfers, money taken from our joint account. Money that should have gone to our home, our future. Instead, it funded hotel rooms, dinners, gifts. And here is the kicker. He signed the receipts with my name." The collective gasp that followed was deafening. His supervisor, the very woman who had just praised him minutes before, rose to her feet. "Is this true?" she demanded, her voice trembling with disbelief. He stammered, words tangling. It is not what it looks like." But the crowd did not buy it. Whispers turned sharp, accusatory. His colleagues exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, others glaring openly. The applause that had crowned him earlier had transformed into suspicion, into disgust. The woman in red suddenly stood, her voice rising over the noise. "This is not all his fault. He loves me and she drove him to me. Her words were gasoline on a fire. People turned on her instantly, their stares slicing her confidence apart. Shameless, someone muttered. She knew he was married. I stepped forward, my voice unshaken. You can both twist the truth all you want, but facts do not bend. He betrayed vows and you betrayed me. Tonight, you both stand in the light you tried to avoid. The woman flushed scarlet, fury flashing in her eyes. She lunged as if to grab the microphone, but Maya blocked her path with a single step. Enough, Maya said coldly. Security guards appeared at the edges of the hall, sensing the escalation. The chaos threatened to spiral, yet I felt calm. This was exactly the chaos I had predicted. Truth has a way of unraveling everything when it finally escapes the shadows. And then another twist. From the far side of the room, an older man rose. His voice carried authority. I am on the board, he announced. And if what she says is true, then not only has this man betrayed his wife, he has betrayed this company. Misusing funds, lying about commitments. This is fraud. The hall gasped anew, louder than before. Fraud. The word hung heavy in the air. Far darker than infidelity. It meant consequences beyond whispers and broken trust. It meant the law. He staggered, gripping the podium as if it could anchor him. His face was ashen, his eyes darting wildly, searching for an escape. But there was none. Not here. Not tonight. I took one final step forward, my voice steady. You see, I did not come here to beg or to cry or to demand apologies. I came to show you all who he really is. And now you know. The audience erupted once more, gasps, angry shouts, some even clapping, though not in celebration of him. The spotlight that had once been his had turned cruel, burning away the lies he built. I looked at him one last time, his shoulders hunched, his pride shattered, his empire collapsing before his eyes. And then I stepped back from the microphone, leaving silence where his lies used to live. But even as I walked away, I knew the fallout had only just begun. The morning after the party felt unreal. For the first time in months, maybe years, I woke without a knot in my stomach. The sun poured through my curtains, warm and golden, and I let myself savor it. My house was quiet, peaceful. But outside those walls, his world was crumbling. My phone buzzed with messages, friends, coworkers, even distant relatives I had not heard from in years. Some were shocked, others congratulated me for my courage, and many admitted they had always suspected something was off about him. The truth had broken free, and no one could put it back into silence. The first blow landed early. His company issued a statement before noon. They were launching a full investigation into allegations of misconduct. Translation: he was suspended. The promotion he had bragged about, the crown jewel of his pride, was stripped away overnight. I watched the news from my couch, coffee in hand, as his face flashed across the screen. The anchor's voice was calm but firm. A senior executive is facing scrutiny after accusations of fraud and infidelity were made public at last night's gala. Clips from the party played, including my voice over the microphone, steady and undeniable. They cut to his face, pale, sweating, cornered. His humiliation was now national. I set my cup down and let the weight of it sink in. For years he had silenced me, mocked me, told me I was too emotional, too dramatic. Now every word I had spoken was evidence, replayed for all to see. By mid-afternoon, another blow landed. His mistress, the woman in red, lost her job. She had been hired under his recommendation, and with his credibility shattered, so was hers. A friend of mine forwarded the email. Her name was gone from the staff directory within hours. She had gambled everything on him, and together they lost. I should have felt pity. I did not. That evening I received a call from Maya. They are circling like vultures, she said. Board members, reporters, even lawyers. He thought he could bury you, but now he is the one being buried. I almost laughed, but the truth was heavier than humor. It is only the beginning, I said softly, because I had not yet released everything. What the world knew was betrayal and fraud. What they had not seen, what I had kept locked away, was even worse. Documents tying him to hidden accounts, forged signatures, debts disguised as company expenses. He had not just betrayed me. He had betrayed everyone who trusted him. The next day I filed my motion in court. Divorce. Clean, precise, and attached with a mountain of evidence. His lawyer tried to stall, begged for private negotiation, but the judge refused. The truth was too public now. He called me that night. For the first time, his voice was not commanding or mocking. It was desperate. "Arya, please. You have made your point. We can fix this. Just stop." I held the phone, listening to the man who once thought he was untouchable reduced to begging. And I answered with the same calm I had carried at the podium. "No. This is not about making a point. This is about making sure you never do this to anyone again." He tried again, voice breaking. "You will destroy me." I closed my eyes, picturing his face when the spotlight turned cruel. "No, you destroyed yourself. I just gave everyone the light to see it." Click. I ended the call. The next morning, the papers screamed headlines. Executive's double life exposed. Fraud allegations rock firm. Wife turns evidence into public scandal. His reputation, once his weapon, was now ashes. He could no longer walk into a room and command respect. He could not even walk into a grocery store without whispers and stares. And me? I walked lighter. For the first time in so long, I was not carrying his lies on my shoulders. I was not silenced. My voice had power and I intended to keep using it. But even with all the destruction around him, I knew the final act was still to come. Court. Legal papers. His empire dismantled piece by piece, not by rage but by truth. That would be the final gift I would deliver, the one he could never undo. The countdown had begun. The day of the final hearing arrived with skies the color of steel. I dressed carefully, not in sorrow but in strength. My navy suit was crisp, my hair pinned back, my chin high. When I looked at my reflection, I did not see the woman who once cowered in the corners of his shadow. I saw a woman who had survived the storm and was ready to close it forever. The courthouse steps were crowded. Reporters waited like hawks, their cameras ready to seize every flicker of drama. I kept walking. My heels clicked with certainty, each step announcing that I was not here as a victim, but as someone who came for justice. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with whispers. He was already seated at the opposite table, his lawyer leaning close, whispering frantic instructions. He looked exhausted. His face was drawn, his shoulders slumped. The polished mask he had worn for years was gone. What remained was a man cornered by truth. My lawyer placed a reassuring hand on my arm. "We have everything we need," she whispered. I nodded, though I barely needed reminding. I had spent months gathering every detail, every receipt, every account. The truth was a weapon, and I had sharpened it well. The proceedings began, and the judge's gavel cracked the air like thunder. "This court is now in session." His lawyer tried to spin a story, painting me as vindictive, emotional, trying to destroy a man out of spite. I stayed still, my face calm. When it was our turn, my lawyer laid out the evidence, page after page. Bank statements, forged transfers, emails. Each piece landed like a hammer. The room shifted. Even those who had come skeptical began leaning forward, eyes widening. The betrayal was no longer just mine. It was visible to all. Finally, he was asked to take the stand. He stumbled through his words, sweat glistening on his forehead. He blamed stress, misunderstandings, even me. His voice cracked when he said, "She is exaggerating. She always has been too emotional." That word again. Emotional. The word he had used like a blade against me for years. I stood. My lawyer asked me if I wanted to make a statement, and I did. I walked to the front, my heels steady on the wood floor. I turned not just to the judge but to the courtroom and spoke clearly. For years I was told I was too emotional, that I should sit down, stay quiet, let him control the narrative. But emotions are not weakness. They are warnings. They told me when I was being lied to. They told me when I was being used. And they led me here today with proof that cannot be dismissed. Silence filled the room. Even he stopped fidgeting. My words were not loud, but they were unshakable. The judge nodded gravely. "The evidence is overwhelming. This court finds in favor of the petitioner." The gavel came down with a final crack. Divorce granted. Assets divided in my favor. Legal restitution ordered. His empire, once towering, now dismantled piece by piece in the light of the law. As I walked out of the courtroom, cameras swarmed. "How do you feel?" one reporter called. I stopped on the courthouse steps, letting the sun warm my face. My voice was steady. I feel free. And I want every woman who has been silenced, mocked, or betrayed to know. Your voice is stronger than their lies. You do not need to scream. The truth, revealed at the right moment, is louder than any betrayal. Applause broke out among the crowd. It was not rehearsed. It was raw, genuine, the kind of applause that said people had heard me not just with their ears but with their hearts. That night I sat in my living room, glass of wine in hand. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Strangers thanking me, friends cheering for me, women sharing their own stories. For the first time, my pain was not a cage. It was a bridge. I thought of him, alone now, stripped of the titles and power he had clung to. I did not feel pity. I felt closure. He had tried to write me out of the story, but I had taken the pen back. I leaned back, looked at the ceiling, and whispered the words I wanted every listener to carry. Revenge is not chaos. It is not destruction for its own sake. Revenge is truth, timed perfectly. He tried to bury me in lies. I buried him in facts. And the truth will always win. The city lights flickered outside my window, glowing like promises of new beginnings. And for the first time in years I believed in them.